We're live.
We are indeed. Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest instalment of from the Mayor Interviews, as I'm calling it, at least on this occasion. Today, I have with me David, who is representing one of my amazing three charities, the Motor Neurone Disease Association. We are indeed. So I'm going to hand over to David to introduce himself in a far better way than I can.
Oh, thank you, Maddie. Yeah, I'm David. I've lived with MND. I was one of the lucky ones. I was diagnosed 8 years ago. And to put that in context, 50% of people who are diagnosed sadly pass away within 2 years and a third within 1 year. So I'm one of the outliers, and I do consider myself, might sound odd, but fortunate to have this slowly moving version. And I do spend a lot of my time, as I was getting fairly close to retirement, not quite there, but spend my time trying to make things better for people living with MND, raising funds and that kind of thing. I call it work replacement therapy.
Is it worth us, from at this juncture, just for the benefit of our listeners, explaining what MND is?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, no problem at all. It's a progressive and terminal, there's no cure, neurological condition which gradually takes away your ability, and in no set route, but it gradually takes away your ability to use your arms, hands, fingers, feet, toes. You might start by losing your voice. You might have difficulty breathing early on, but hopefully that would be later. You might have problems eating. It takes away all the normal kind of things you can do bit by bit. And as I've said already, sometimes faster. It can happen in a very short space of time. And that's one of the key things, because especially for people with the faster moving version of motor neurone disease, you need all the services and care in place in very good time.
Yes, for those that know me will know the reason that I've got a close association with Motor Neurone Disease Association is both of my grandmothers suffered with it. From my maternal grandmother, Joan Granger, was one of the unlucky third that David mentioned. She was diagnosed, when she started showing symptoms, probably January 2013. It's the first time that we got an indication something wasn't right. And she was diagnosed in the July and she died the following December. And she had the version which David spoke about that attacks your voice first. So she lost all ability for speech. She couldn't lift her head properly by the end of it. And she would have these panic breathing sessions where she was struggling for breath.
Yeah.
The only thing I said, the unlucky third, and it is unlucky. For my part, though, I watched her deteriorate in front of my own eyes. So there was some relief, though it didn't feel like it at the time in her going, which she did. And yesterday was the anniversary of the day we lost her.
Oh, it's very sad.
My paternal grandmother had the diagnosis, but actually, mercifully, she passed away from a heart attack before it progressed beyond losing most of the ability in her right hand and her right leg. But I think there's something part of her body decided that she didn't want to go through any more of that progressive side of it, and so took her out quicker.
Yeah, very, very sad as well. It's very sad you should have two grandparents, because a lot of people, but it just goes to show, a lot of people think that MND is rare, but it's not. It's not as rare as you think. The lifetime risk of getting motor neurone disease is 1 in 300. So, 2.5, sadly, members of parliament, I don't know, 300 people, I think, inside Wembley Stadium in a capacity house, 3 or 4 children in a decent sized school. So and if you actually extrapolate that's a big word, extrapolate, but across the population, that means that between 200,000 and 250,000 people alive today from the very latest born baby to the oldest person will get MND at some stage in their lives. So it's not rare. It's just that unfortunately, with that 2 years, 50% passing away within 2 years, sadly, we pass away more quickly than those with other conditions. So,
yeah.
you know.
So they don't. And just to put that in a local Croydon context, that means there's approximately somewhere between 280 and 300 people that currently live in Croydon will have or are suffering of motor neuron disease.
Yeah.
So as from the loyal listeners, if there are any, will know it's will grasp rather it is not something that is small.
No.
And it's a real honour to be able to do a small bit, though I grant you in these times of COVID it can only be a small bit, but towards helping and looking for a better future. And I think it's going to tie us into the first pre-arranged question which we had which is about advancement. Have there been any significant advances to it? But before I just let you answer, David, we might think you might lead off with the talk about the Ice Bucket Challenge and the success that came from that.
Actually, they're inextricably linked, both of those things. But go ahead. Yeah.
No, that's exactly why I'd bring them up, because they were linked. Because one led to the advance of the other. For those that remember, a few years ago, it's quite extraordinary because it was around just the year after my nan passed away. Everybody was going around Facebook filming themselves chucking buckets of ice over their head, and for those that remember, making donations to Motor Neurone Disease Association in the process of doing that. It's one of the most successful campaigns, certainly social media campaigns, I think I've ever seen. It was extraordinary, and it was, for me, a really powerful healing tool to be able to see that this really people were waking up to what I didn't know existed before, and then came to realise very quickly was not an uncommon condition. And the reason David says that they're intrinsically linked is, David?
Well, yeah, I mean, it was a fantastic event, and I was getting on for 2 years diagnosed, and it was amazing the impact on the MND community, which I hadn't been in for that long, but so many people out there that were living with it, their carers or recently lost someone, were so uplifted by hearing motor neurone disease talked about. And then people not everybody admittedly at the start knew exactly what they were doing it for, but after a bit they did, because the message started to get out. And it was the same year that The Theory of Everything with Eddie Redmayne came out. So all of a sudden, our condition was kind of in the headlines, and that was kind of uplifting, because sometimes the community can feel quite, alone, as it were. So, and then they started to spend the money. So in the UK, I don't know the global amount, but in the UK, we raised around about £7 million from the Ice Bucket Challenge. And £5.5 million was dedicated. We did a bit of a poll at the MND Association, and research got around about 70, put it to MND research. So that was about £5.5 million. Now what that did, and we've got some of the leading world researchers here, and I've been lucky enough to meet some of them up at King's College, where I'm sure some of Croydon constituents will go to. And really some of the best scientists in the world. And I was talking to one the other week, and I asked him, I said, how much do you think, the Ice Bucket Challenge accelerated research? He said, David, I think it accelerated it by about 5 years. And there's an enormous, and that's a bit of a wow factor. Yeah. And what they've done, in the 90s, there were 1 or 2 genes that are inherent in MND. They were found. In the noughties, 7, 8, 9, 10 more genes. But now it's really, they're finding new genes regularly, and it's really accelerated the amount of genes that they know are involved. And what they're doing now, they're trying with perhaps drugs which already exist for different conditions, but also new drugs and new treatments. They're trying to see what they can do to stop those genes doing the bad things they do, or to make them go faster, make them go slower, take them out of the genome. It's far beyond me to explain, but they really, that money has really accelerated the research so much that the same professor, Ammar Al-Shalabi, he's a lovely guy as well. He said that 25 years ago, when I started at King's in research, I would have said we'll never find a cure. We'll never find a treatment for MND. But 25 years later, I can confidently say that within 2 to 3 years, for certain forms, and it will be probably the 10% that are the inherited form, within 2 to 3 years, we will find effective treatments. He's not saying a cure, but things that will help slow it down. And that really is especially for Christmas, that's a big message of hope. So
that's from an unbelievably amazing Christmas present. I mean, again, I touch my own story as well. There's no guaranteed indication that either of my grandparents suffer with the inherited version, but with it coming from both directions, I've always assumed that increased my likelihood dramatically. So someone that may well develop it in later life, that is like Christmas and birthdays the next 20 years come early.
Yeah.
No. So I'm actually quite moved.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's probably not going to be in time enough, say me, but they reckon once they've sorted out the familial one, it should, all the techniques and they've learned from that should enable them to go on and develop it for the treatments for the sporadic forms of MND.
Well, we can always dream that it will help you, David. But in the event that it doesn't, it'll be in your name that people will survive.
Well, there's a lot of us doing it together, but there's a lot of people out there campaigning. And the MND Association, we've got a fantastic group. There was a poll recently, and we got very good marks from MPs up at Westminster for being on their list of, oh, yes, I better go to that. And yes, I better support this one and that one. So our staff team, as well as our volunteers, they punch above their weight a bit. It's quite.
Dave's used that expression with me before, and it's stuck in my mind. Which I just think symbolically, the idea of someone with motor neuron disease being able to punch above their weight is a lovely image. So it sort of stuck with me. So that's a sign of some good news.
Yeah.
Let's talk about it a bit more personal and talk about closer to home. How would you say your care is organised? How about the care for yourself and then for someone else with motor neuron disease? As you've indicated, it's a wide variety of symptoms.
Yeah, it is. I mean, generally across the country, it's pretty good, but there are patches as ever. And through campaigning and before my time, they started the association and the community for a nice guideline to the care of MND in about 2010. Finally, in 2016, when I was around, they published it. And of course, that is, if you like, it's like something, if you're not getting the care you need, it's something you can take to your GP or the specialist and say, hang on, you should be looking at this, or you should be providing me with that. So it's a very useful document. But actually, I didn't quite understand this. I took part in a committee which did a clinical audit, or we developed a clinical audit for care teams and hospitals and even hospices, etc., and local multidisciplinary teams to adhere to. And one of the people that was putting it together, one of these sort of health professionals, said, no, health people really want to be audited. And I was thinking, because I come from a commercial background, and I love accountants as I do, but I wasn't that keen on having the auditors in. But apparently, and it's true, that a lot of people have taken the clinical audit, and they're showing them, they want to show themselves to be amongst the top performers.
Yeah, I think there's.
So that's good. But locally, I'm just outside Croydon, down here in Surrey. But my multidisciplinary team is very good. There's one or two patches in respiratory services, so it's being mended. Used to have to go up to St Thomas's for my respiratory treatment in London. Now I can go to East Surrey, and I think there's such a long list of therapists on the nice list. You might have up to 20, but I think the core is anything from 9 to say 12.
Yeah.
So you have you might have an occupational therapist for social care. You might have a health occupational therapist, a physio, a respiratory nurse, a speech and language therapist, a dietitian, a wheelchair therapist. The list goes on and on. And that care needs to be coordinated. And again, in the part of Surrey that I'm in, we have a specialist MND practitioner who helps coordinate, because it can get a bit like Piccadilly Circus sometimes with carers coming, health professionals coming and going. But if it's all done and coordinated, it can be really good, and that's when you're going to get the best effects from your care team. And normally speaking, they do a fantastic job.
I'd echo that, but I'd also echo about the coordination. And one of the things I often reflect on is how things change over time. And people that know me will know, say, my way of doing this job is to reflect on personal experiences, and nothing's more personal than my connection with motor neuron disease, as discussed a moment ago. But I look at the way that the care is approached now compared to it was when my nan was unwell. It is notably different.
Yeah.
They kind of, and you can see the effects of those NICE guidelines coming through.
Yeah.
Based on the story that David tells and the story of what my nan's experiences were. And hers were, as we said, was one of the fastest moving possible. And I would say probably the cruelest, because it does attack your speech first.
Yeah.
And I had this idea about, her mind was intact, but in fact she suffered quite badly with depression, which is, I think, not a huge surprise, considering the fact you get told what's going to happen to you. But there's a lot of support there in terms of the motor neuron disease were brilliant in providing, because she couldn't speak but she could still move her hands, in providing her a touch typing tool. But my nan was terrified of technology, and so the only opportunity anyone had for her, they just basically just delivered it on her doorstep.
Yeah.
And then there wasn't the therapy to come in to help her, reassure her in using the technology. So the only reassurance she got was when my husband and I would rush home from work to go and reassure her it was okay to kind of like use this, and it's not scary.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely right. The funny enough, just the last week, or the last couple of weeks, I've been speaking to some excellent environmental control specialists at St George's, Tooting.
Yes.
And they've been down here to see me because I have been controlling the laptop that I'm on at the moment with my voice and my foot. I've got a foot mouse, but my feet are getting weaker, so I'm going to have to control this with my voice. And to explain the silver disc in the middle of my glasses, I know you were thinking it was a fashion accessory. I don't have the software working, so it's not actually working at the moment, but there's a camera on top of my laptop which looks at that dot, and I can move my head around, and the cursor will dwell on where you need to click on the screen, and click it. So I don't have to use my hands or my feet anymore. And I'm going to get this is not the proper kit at the moment. I'm going to get the proper stuff early in the new year, and I'm looking forward to that, because it will be easy. It does bounce around, but the therapist is going to come in and they're going to help me slow this cursor down so it doesn't bounce up and down and get me frustrated. But
if it comes safe to do so at any point, I'd love to come and have a play.
Absolutely.
But I think it's a very good moment to move on to the next question, because it links in, and that's what help is available from the Motor Neuron Disease Association and other charities. I mean, I would suggest mention St Christopher's as one of my other charities as being a good moment in connection there.
Yeah, well, we are closely linked with many hospices across the country, and I've heard some fantastic things about St Christopher's. Very briefly, to deal with hospices, there's the obvious thought that you get when you've been diagnosed with, say, something like MND or other terminal diseases. But I've been persuaded by some fantastic palliative care specialists that I've listened to that hospices aren't just about dying, that they're about dying well, but they're even more than that. And many people in our community tell fantastic stories about how the hospices help them, help their family, help the caring partner, whichever side that is. So they're fantastic services that they offer. So we're very supportive, obviously, of all the hospices. But what else? The MND Association, which doesn't provide care. That's important to say, because some people can get that a bit wrong. We're looking to have specialist practitioners, specialist nurses in the NHS, although there have been examples where we have pump primed specialist nurses and that kind of thing, funded them for a year or so, and then gradually the local health services have seen the value of having that coordinated care, for care purposes as well as economic business purposes. And so there are more, but by no means everywhere in the country now. But we will try, the association will try to step in where care is lacking, and it might be pieces of equipment, it might be a loan, not a loan, it might be a grant to pay for a certain amount, for example, some special equipment for a wheelchair, because we can get some very good basic electronic wheelchairs from the NHS, but there might be specialist equipment that the NHS are saying, well, we can't fund that at the moment. Like I've had a foot control for my chair, and I'm going to get a chin control after Christmas. Actually, that's NHS funded, the chin control, but the foot control was paid for by the MND Association. Similarly, I got help. I've got a washer dryer toilet at home. I can't use my arms, hands, or my legs. So a washer dryer toilet is, to be blunt, very handy. And again, that was I was given a grant to help pay for a part of that from the MND Association. There are local staff that will advocate on your behalf to local services, social care or health. They're very good people, and that's both. Sometimes, it's a little individual issue, and sometimes it's something a bit bigger, a bit more regional. And there's some excellent staff out there doing that kind of thing. If you get into specialist issues with wheelchairs or communications devices, there's experts, mainly at head office, but they can, again, get out and speak, or get on the phone and speak to local services to explain exactly what you need. Then a lot of the money obviously goes into research, and we've got a couple of people that actually sort through the applications for grants to make sure that it's going into the right places. But obviously that's a large part of the budget. It's, the two major parts are care and then research, and then finally our campaigning arm, which aims to make things better locally, if there's a gap in services, or nationally. And that's what I very much get involved in.
Brilliant. Yeah. And I'm just mentioning about the kind of people advocating for you. I would emphasize particularly the power that brings.
Yeah.
Don't underestimate, if you're a family member of someone that can suffer with any condition, but certainly something like from life-changing as motor neuron disease, the value for having someone that will fight for you and fight for your loved ones. And that's not meaning that society or from the NHS in any way is not wanting to help you, but sometimes people don't always have the experience, and these people do. So they'll know exactly what to say to people to make them understand your needs are, and just give you the value of experience that you as individuals will be lacking.
Yeah.
And the hospice stuff, to touch on that, I totally agree with you. And I think from something else that I did a while ago was something called Creating Conversations, which was with St Christopher's, which was about encouraging people to start making conversations about death and dying. Society, it's from a problem with society that it's still such a taboo subject, and yet it is something that is around us tragically all the time. It's the one thing that will happen to everybody alive at some point, and it's not healthy if we don't feel comfortable talking about it. So that's just another example of the sort of thing that hospices will do. They'll have those conversations when maybe sometimes other people will be reluctant to.
Yeah.
Be quite a good link that you obviously talked about some of the help that you've had with your the toilet and with your amazing tool and your glasses, which I am very envious of. But are there any other adaptations to your home, just as an individual, that you'd want to highlight, just as an example of what people that
we were lucky. We put off having an extension to our house for years and years, and once I was diagnosed, we said, "Oh, we better get that done," because I was pretty aware that I wouldn't be able to get up the stairs I wasn't sure how long. So within about 2.5 years, we had started on an extension, and we now live downstairs with a wet room with the wide doors. So I've got a shower chair right in front of me here, actually, that can get me get me into the bathroom, onto the loo, and under the shower. And we got wide doors at the front of the house. It's all flat into the lounge, into our bedroom, and into the bathroom. I could go into the kitchen, but I don't think Helen would want me in there. But I can't do much when I get there apart from look at the food or drink. So, but no, it's very important to get things you need, if you can, to try and get ahead of the game. And that is one of the issues that we've started campaigning about this year. We call it our MND Association Act to Adapt campaign.
Yes.
And it's to get easier access for people that don't have the means, because it is means tested, to disabilities facilities grants. And to get an understanding from the people that assess those grants of, can we get to the top, our patients to near the top of the list? Because there have been some stories in the past where, a grant's been okayed, but the person has sadly recently died. It's gone that quick. So it's that speed that one of the things that we're trying to get in, as well as a bit of an understanding that of the needs of somebody with MND. You're going to need things. I've got ceiling track hoists at home now. Got one right above me because so Helen doesn't have to lift me up. I've got this. I don't know if you can. No, you can't see it, I don't think. I've got this. What's it called? Hoist. I've got this thing that lifts me up from the ceiling and lifts me up and drags me along into my bath chair or my wheelchair. So, and that was again applied by the local authorities. My occupational therapist got it. Can I go for a second? I've just got to call Helen.
Oh yeah, of course.
Can you bear with it's some?
No, absolutely. For those that benefit, Helen is his amazing, incredible wife. And again, I've met Helen in person, and I really have to say she's incredible.
I'm very sorry. I just had to call Helen. The door rang, and she was in the depths of our bedroom.
I was just saying to everybody listening what an amazing person Helen is. I think David's incredible. You should meet her.
Absolutely. It's the carers that have got the brunt of it, really. I literally can't do anything. We can't choose what we lose first, whether it's voice or legs or arms. Unfortunately, I lost my hands first, so you literally can't do very much unless you can. I think I used my feet for a few things at one time. But on the other hand, I'm really pleased, unlike some, that I've still got my voice, and I really would go nutty if I didn't have that. So
for my part, for the reasons discussed, I have spent some time, I'd like to think not a huge amount of time, but have spent some time thinking about it. And I think the voice going would be the thing I personally would find the most difficult. Again, its reputation, I never stopped talking.
I've got a feeling you're right. Yeah. So, I've been lucky again. Sorry, what were we talking about, Maddie?
I think we were just talking about kind of household adaptations. But yes. Quite well when we talked about Helen acting as the carer, and I think I would then discuss about effects on the wider family unit, and I think that ties together the conversation we're having about St Christopher's and other wider hospices and family members, because every condition, if everybody suffers along with the patient, but there are some conditions where the person is directly affected as well. And I think motor neuron disease is most definitely one of them, because you really have to become a carer very quickly.
Yes, absolutely. Helen had to give up work. She was a teaching assistant, but I managed for about a year, first year roughly, but then she gave up. And but we get about a lot. We got a wheelchair access vehicle. I mean, we were getting about a lot. I don't mean we have in the last year like everybody else. But yeah, there's an awful lot of pressure, and we're hoping that the government really looks into the role of the unpaid carer.
Yes,
in its green paper. But we've been waiting for that for years because it's a fairly paltry payment when it's stands instead of what she earned previously. But it's not just that. It's the other help and support she should be getting. I mean, we have to go to a charity. Not that we've had to so far, but if Helen was suddenly struck down with something or the other, or twisted her ankle, I would need looking after. And okay, we've got sons, but they're all working, sons and daughter-in-laws. And I know they do their best, but at some stage, there's absolutely nothing, I can do if I didn't have Helen here. And
it speaks to me directly. And since spending a bit of time about my own grandparents, but flipping it about the only other grandparent that I knew that I haven't mentioned was my grandfather, who died of from Parkinson's and Lewy body's dementia. Yeah. And my grandmother, my paternal grandmother, the last one to leave us, was from his carer full time for about 3 years. And she, at one point, we literally had to talk her into going away to just spend 48 hours away in France with her family, her extended family. And sort of like, but that meant that my mum had to take all the time off work. I had to take some time off work to do that because they had at that point the support wasn't there.
Yeah.
And you realize just how much these kind of, you say, the unpaid carers do for no thanks and no recognition and certainly no payment from society, and that can't be right.
No, it can't. There's no sort of respite. Even they can't go away in a couple of days. I mean, we do arrange things, so we hope to again when things lift, but it's very and it needs some support there because they are saving society.
Yes, a huge amount of money. I mean, I think that's also a good point, a good moment to lead us into our next question, which is what benefits are available for people in this situation, for the families and for the patients.
Yeah, so benefits, there is employment support, ESA, and there's also personal independence payment. ESA obviously is to help replace some of what you earned, and depends on your employment history and that kind of thing. Personal independence payment is not means tested. Actually, I'm still on disability living allowance. I haven't been transitioned across that. And then there are forms of universal credit, which I don't know too much about. But the main, and there's for a household, there's also the carer's allowance, which is something in the £60 per week.
It's a tiny amount of money.
Yeah, a tiny amount. That is, I can't remember the exact rules, but if you work more than, if you do earn, it can be taken away. Just earn a little bit, it can be taken away. But it's handy support for those that are looking after their, relatives or close friends. PIP is pretty universal, as I say. It's or DLA, as some people are still on, is universal. It's not means tested, and that that's pretty helpful. But it doesn't. We did a survey at the association a couple of years ago of the cost of MND, and it was just something like, I can't remember the exact number, something like £12,000 per year, but that's before loss of earnings. So you're already negative, and and again you can find that survey on our website. So it's quite expensive getting MND as well.
I can't obviously the mayoralty is a neutral figure
Of course.
I would reach out to governments of any colour to just actually stop and think and look at the truth of what this really looks like.
Yeah, I mean,
it clearly needs a lot of work, and it clearly needs thinking again.
Yeah.
Got any compassion, please listen to people like David. And listen to like my grandmothers.
Yeah, and people, in worse positions than myself. But we've actually there's another thing that it's actually gradually getting improved, but it's not quite there yet. and for about the past 4 or 5 years, we've been campaigning for, it's down different silos of legislation, like for ESA or for personal independence payments. Also, don't know other routes, but previously they've been reassessing people for their benefits. All of a sudden, you get a reminder letter, and you have to have an assessor in, or worse still, you have to go and see an assessor and prove again that you're not fit for work. Well, with MND, 100%, you simply cannot get better. And we actually did demonstration in Parliament Square about in the Beast of the East. That was actually quite good because it got us extra coverage on telly. And they have actually put the reassessment period out to 10 years. And to be fair, that's just meant to be a light touch reassessment. Just to check your bank account details are still the same, so that's kind of fair enough. But previously, it would be every year, and it's quite a damning letter that comes in. You've got to be there, otherwise you will lose it. And if you're one of those that have got the fast progressing version, it's not. That's something else you've got to worry about. And it's still going on in different circumstances now. We've had our Scrap 6 months campaign going on. So this is previously to sign what they call a DS 1500. A health professional has got to think that you're going to die within 6 months, which, one, a lot of people with MND don't necessarily want to admit that. And secondly, the health professionals often, but not always, aren't confident to sign those things in case they get into trouble. But again, recently, Justin Tomlinson more or less said in Parliament that they're going to change that, so that's 6 months, and that there will be a lifetime award for the benefits once you're in the system and diagnosed, etc. And they should be announcing that, we hope, early in the new year, and then they need to get it through Parliament. But we're just hoping that for as soon as possible, because we've been going at it for some time.
The sooner the better, and that is what goes through. That really is progress. That's really can make a difference. So fingers crossed, and well done to all of you campaigning for it, because it's not easy to convince a government to change a position of that, which it's taken.
I mean, again, our staff and our patients from across the country, we've been talking to them. We were on a Zoom call about 3-4 weeks ago with Justin and a few people at the DWP. It's not been quick enough, to be honest. We did a review. I went up Downing Street in August of 2019, with a petition, 55,000. We went up with Marie Curie.
I signed it.
You signed it. Good lady. And it's obviously had some kind of effect. But it was several years before, 2 or 3 years before then, that we started out. And the legislation still isn't there, although there is clearly awareness of it now. So fingers crossed it gets done very soon.
Well, I'm rooting for the success of it. Now, the final prepared question we've got is, what is NHS continuing healthcare and how easy is it to access? So that's probably something that our viewers will need explaining. Some of them will, obviously, some of them will know it.
Okay, now this continuing healthcare comes via the NHS. So it's not from the DWP. And essentially, if you are deemed to have an unmet health need at home, you can receive the relevant care, nursing care, even social care that you need. Unfortunately, it is so difficult to get. And there is also, a postcode lottery. It seems to be easier to get in some parts of the country than others. And it's so sad, because people with neurological diseases, not just MND, but others, tend to go towards the needing more care side. There's no operation, like, I'm not saying it's any better to have cancer or heart or whatever. In fact, I've got some heart disease myself. But you can have an operation for that. And you might need some recuperation and all the rest of it. But generally speaking, you're taken care of. Whereas with the neurological conditions, you're going to need care at home if you're to stay at home. If not, you might have to, if you haven't got the care in place, you might have to go to some kind of home or hospital anyway. So, but it's so difficult to get continuing healthcare, to get that nursing care, to get that NHS care at home. And I think it's just, reading between the lines, you've got to think that not just this government, but a series of governments don't really want to open the door to the whole dementia area, because if you open the door to that, God knows what the cost for nursing at home would be. But again, perhaps that might be part of the green paper. But there are campaigns, because there are some very doubtful assessment processes that go on throughout the country, in different places in the country. Some places better than others, that almost seem self-evidently there to stop you getting continuing healthcare and to getting that help from social services and the health services in your own home. So it has been in the press a fair bit. It strikes me that actually some of our charities should actually get together and fund a test case for it. And there is a
for that. Maybe you could try and see if we can get St Christopher's and motor neuron disease as a starting combination in that.
Well, yes, it actually is. It is the hospices, and it's probably charities like Marie Curie, Parkinson's, Macmillan, MS Society need to get together, because they show they're great charities. Don't get me wrong, and I can see perhaps there might be a big cost to this, but it could make such a difference if there was proper care in the home. So taking them on, excuse me, in court, together by unifying the numbers might help make a difference. There's actually, there's actually been a Rear Admiral on TV a couple of months ago, Rear Admiral Philip Mathias, and he's mounted a campaign to try to attract money to mount such a test case. So
maybe we should contact him. That's a job for us for the next few months, David.
Yes, that's another one. It's not a small.
Let's talk to Carol from St Christopher's as well. I'm sure she's up for it.
Yeah, Carol Bonner. Yeah.
No. I meant Carol Bonner would. Yes, I meant Carol from St Christopher's, but Carol Bonner.
I'm sorry. Yes.
For those colleagues that don't know, Carol Bonner was a councillor in Croydon for many years. She's stood down the last term, but by incredible coincidence, David and I both have a mutual friend in her.
Yes, I met her a couple of years ago.
Before we met each other.
Yeah, we were doing a bit of campaigning at a Labour Party conference a couple of years ago.
So yes, that brings us to the end of the pre-prepared questions. Now, regular watchers will know this, but as my guests never do, I always finish by having stolen an idea from one of my favourite podcasts, where I have something called closing arguments.
Right.
Where I shut up and I give the last word to my guest to talk about whatever they want to. Any final comments and thoughts they want to leave our viewers with?
Well, how timely is that? Because for the past, couple of years we've been talking about, but this year, together with the MND Association, MND Scotland, and the Doddy Weir Foundation, the Scottish rugby player, we've been starting to get together a campaign to improve targeted, very important word, targeted funding for MND research from the government. Because a couple with a fellow patient, and he actually did the research, we've looked into the amount of money the government spend on research. And we compared it with what the charities spend. For the last 3 years on targeted research, the government spent about £3 million per year on targeted MND research via the BEIS on the one hand and the DHSC on the other. They in turn fund the Medical Research Council and the National Institute for Health Research. So that research funded by the government totals about £3 million. The equivalent donated by the charities is £5.5 million per year. So, it's not getting on for a double what the government does. And because of that impetus that I was talking about right at the start, from the researchers, we don't want to let that impetus go, because they're saying we can get there, but we need funding to help us. So we're saying, well, come on, we can, with your help. We've got this hashtag United to End MND, and that's Scotland, MND Scotland, Doddy Foundation, MND Association, patients, researchers. We're asking the government to join us in that team by giving us £50 million over 5 years, so that those top UK researchers can, knock the nail on the head and get these advances over the line and into patients. Because there is that hope, and there's a care reason. There's a humanitarian case that Maddie, obviously. I understand, and a lot of people understand. There really is nothing for MND. There's a tablet that goes back to the 90s that gives you an extra 3 months, but after that, once you're diagnosed, there's nothing. So that's a humanitarian case. But there's also, as you have to with governments, have to have a business case. And we think there's a great case, because not just saving money for the health services, it's to and fro whether we might save or not. I mean, in the long term, you would. But initially, if you got people in care a bit longer, it might take a little bit more resource up, although that would gradually tip over after a few years. But there's a great story for, because our researchers are world leading, and we reckon we can attract the investment of the pharmaceutical companies. And in our briefing document, we got quotes from the big pharmaceutical firms to say they would spend money in the UK because they know our researchers are best, if they could see the government showing the money to create that threshold of funding, so that all these trial platforms for those drugs are in place. So it's not just back of a fag packet campaign. It's very well thought out, and we were delighted to. It was announced on BBC Breakfast end of November, early December, with Doddy Weir, Jill Douglas from the BBC. No, not Jill Douglas, she wasn't on that. And Ammar Al-Chalabi, our professor from King's. We recently had a meeting with Matt Hancock, and he's promised to come back to us in the new year. So not us, I wasn't there, but Doddy Weir was there, Jill Douglas from the BBC, and the professor. And it was positive, but we're waiting now. We're optimistic, but we think we might have to fight a bit harder when the feedback comes back. But that's our big campaign. And I was lucky enough to be in a podcast with Doddy Weir, which has just been released on the Doddy Weir social media channels, if anybody would like to see it. Talking about that effort. So that's been our big thing of the last couple of years, but definitely the last few months. Been really quite time. Yeah, it's taken up some time, but it's been great to be involved with a great team of people trying to get it done. And that would give people living with MND so much hope if we could get that extra funding.
Hear, hear.
There we go.
Brilliant. Absolutely fantastic end. As this is the first of my 3 charities on this, I will just I'll do my absolute last thing will be encouraging everybody, please donate to the Mayor's charity. You've seen an example of where your money will go. It will not only save lives, it will make those suffering currently have such a better experience, and it really could change the world. So please go to the Mayor's Just Giving page, or send a check or anything you can to my team, and it will go to David and to others and make their lives better. Thank you all very much. This is our last interview before Christmas. So Merry Christmas, everybody. I hope you have a brilliant Christmas, despite whichever tier you're in. And we will get through the end of this time. And next 2021 will be a much happier and healthier year.
And to you, Maddie, and to you.